All right, we'll bring you excerpts of the manifesto as read on the 24th of August later. But for now, let's go onto the phone lines and speak with Franklin Cudjoe of Imani, Ghana. Franklin, thank you so much for your time. You're welcome to Newsbeat. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon. Thanks for having me. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you. I can hear you audible. Thank you. So we've gone through a bit of your comments on some of the policies as put out by the political parties, rather strong-worded comments that you've put out on social media. But firstly, let me pick your first opinion on how relatable the two leading political parties' manifesto sound to you.
Well, that's a good question. How relatable? They are related to the extent, or they're relatable, if you like, to the extent that they both tend to focus on burdening the private sector in order to, as it were, unleash growth into the economy. Basically, they think that the private sector ought to be given reprieves like tax breaks. Bamia wants to do a flat tax, even though he's not giving any indication of what percentage of flat tax he would like to adopt. The NDC also gives all kinds of tax breaks, VAT related, and then also goes ahead to talk about certain incentives, really segmented incentives according to industry, agriculture especially. And so yes, they are relatable when it comes to that. But you know what separates them, and this is where my comments actually came to pass. I made my comments when the NDC had presented their manifesto. I think what I saw, what I read, what I listened to the NDC manifesto is that, you know, it was sort of human-centered. You could feel it. It's humane. It's related. It's relatable. It's clearer also. And if you think that even the manifesto itself was made, a version of it was in Braille for the blind, that was quite interesting to start off with. But I go further to say that, look, if any politician makes a claim or makes a bold statement that is going to give 30% of public office appointments or public office appointments to women across board, that's daring. That's actually quite that's daring, as the word I still want to use, and quite makes it very interesting for people, for governance watchers like us to watch and applaud if indeed he or President John Mahama comes back to office. And I say so because, you see, for far too long, we've relegated our women to the background. Of course, in this country, they may have access to certain things, but for most of the time, public office is always a daunting task. And in my experience, women are far smarter than men. I mean, I've said this several times. Everywhere I've said it, people come back to me and say, why, especially the men. And I've said it several times elsewhere, that women are far organized and smarter. In fact, if we had more women in not just public offices, but even in the private sector, the corruption will be reduced. There's a lot of experience to show, and indeed productivity would be enhanced. So I was quite happy to hear that 30% appointments are going towards women.
Yeah.
The other point has to do with period poverty for young girls. You know, it was touching to hear that at least something will be done for young girls who could, in certain parts of the country, cannot go to school because they do not have the means to take care of their sanitary issues when they had their time of the month. And for that particular call, for that clear decision to ensure that period poverty becomes a thing of the past, I thought got my vote as well. And I felt that, look, these things are very relatable, they are humane, and they are clear. So aside all the good things that both parties will say, both NPP and NDC want to tell us they want to do economically and what have you, all the big things they want to do, I think the NDC stands out clearly when it comes to these issues around our female counterparts.
So, I mean, you wrote that I now have a fuller understanding of the 24-hour economy, but my team will be doing the deeper analysis to quantify its true value to the economy. Now, this policy is one of the policies from the NDC that has been highly criticized, and mostly by opponents say it's impossible. Will you count this policy as one of the related policies coming from the NDC, relatable policies coming from the NDC?
Well, as you know, the 24-hour thing is not really, it's not really an outcome, more or less. I think it's a process. So it's very difficult to criticize it. You see, it's not like It's not like saying one district, one factory, or one village, one dam, so that you can say this one, it won't work or it will work. This one is more aspirational, so it's very difficult to criticize it. What I think the NDC has managed to do, and that's how my opinion shifted a little bit better, a little bit to the positive side, is that they've tried to explain now exactly how the process, what they think would encourage the 24-hour economy to come to fruition. So they've talked about all the interventions they would also make, which makes a bit of sense. I mean, I would have said that, look, in addition to all of that, we should not see the 24-hour economy program more or less as just people filling in positions, getting people employed. We should rather be thinking about value addition to the economy. Otherwise, if we don't do that, we only have many people working. We'll spend more money getting people to work, getting the streets lighted up, getting all the infrastructure, police, security people employed, and then we may find out that the addition to the economy is actually zero. So I think that's where my team and my team is actually going to focus on. What exactly will be the value addition to the economy if certain interventions were taken by the NDC? So that's where the focus is. Otherwise, you see, like I gave an example this morning to your sister network, that in the 70s or so, the Milton Friedman, an American economist, visited China and saw that the Chinese workers were constructing roads. They were using shovels to dig pits. Now he asked them, why didn't they use tractors from America? He said, well, they wanted to employ a lot more people so they could work. And then he said, well, then why don't you give them spoons? Because with spoons, it will take longer to dig the pits and to employ a lot more people. But is that a productive way of getting things done? So that's the way I see this 24-hour thing as far as unemployment goes. Mm-hmm. It should not just be about filling in spaces, but it should be about value addition to the economy.
Right. Let's focus on the NPP as well. Being in office and seeking to occupy the high office, Dr. Bawumia actually said that we have fulfilled 80% of our promises. Is your team working on maybe using a marking scheme on this government? Because it looks like both administrations all end up using their own marking scheme and not necessarily subjecting themselves to strict proof.
Well, you know, we've done that in the past. We usually used to do a quantification of the manifestos, but we stopped doing it for this particular period because of COVID that occurred and because a few things probably were a bit unclear. We didn't want to give anybody false hope because, see, the challenge is that the way the manifestos are written, if somebody says, I would make sure that there are laptops or there's internet in SHS institutions, and they provide internet in maybe a third of the schools, it may be marked as, oh, maybe they've attained their promise because they've done it anyway. But that's not the way we should be analyzing these promises. So we decided we won't do it this time around because, again, in order to get into this ordinary counting of promises that have no real value. So that's the only reason why we didn't do it this time around. So we moved away from now doing qualitative assessment of the economy, which is what I suspect many people will be interested in. And then as far as that goes, I think my view still stands that this economy has been dealt a severe blow by this administration, irrespective of the fact that COVID, Russia-Ukraine happened. All this COVID and Russia-Ukraine affected other African countries. None of them recorded 54% interest rates, inflation at the point. None of them went to I don't think there's any African country that has actually gone past, its debt cannot be dealt with, and it's gone broke, and went to the IMF in a palanquin, in an ambulance. And to think that there was a debt exchange that gave excruciating haircuts to people, and pensioners queuing and asking for their money. To the extent that unemployment now is actually 4 times what it was in 2016. To the extent that the exchange rate $1 to the cedi is around 4 times when it was in 2016. To the extent that if interest rates are at a dizzying height, and to think that all these indicators tell you that the way the economy has been dealt a severe blow by mismanagement has never happened in more than a generation. So for me, that's where my conversation about the economy stands. Anybody can go up and say whatever they want to say. This is my reality. This is my understanding of the economy. It is really stupid.
Thank you, Cudjoe. We're grateful. We'll leave it here. We'll continue to analyze it with you as you also work on the statement policies from the political parties.